Hello again, I'm Doug Smith. Welcome to the 14th September edition of Portsmouth This Week, the voice of Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Our special guests today are Cindy Killavey and Gloria Schmidt. Cindy is the director of the Portsmouth Community Theater, one of the great cultural resources of Portsmouth. Welcome both of you to the show.
Thanks, Doug. It's nice to be here.
Welcome back. You guys have been on before, I think.
Yes.
So, I know that Community Theater is gearing up for a new production in the next couple of weeks. Before we get into that, though, and talk about some of your other recent successes, I wonder if we could start with some background on how the Community Theater got off the ground and why was it started?
Okay, years ago when my children were young and I was involved in the Arts for Life program at with the schools, I was on that committee, and so was Priscilla Wimpress. A friend whose children were also involved in the Newport Children's Theater was Rebecca Vickers. And one day she said to me, you know, Newport's got this children's theater, but there's nothing really in Portsmouth. And we were both impressed by the Jamestown Community Theater, which was a true community theater involving all ages, all talents. And so we thought, well, maybe we could start a community theater in Portsmouth. Now, I knew Priscilla Wimpress because she was also on the Arts for Life committee, and I knew she had a background in children's theater. So I invited her to come and talk to Rebecca and I. Rebecca called up a lawyer friend so that we knew where we would start. We got the paperwork, we filled it in, and we became the Portsmouth Community Theater. We wrote the bylaws, and then we decided that we would have a meeting at the library just to see if there was any interest in town. Well, there were about 25 people at that meeting, and as we went around the room introducing ourselves and saying what we could bring to the table, we could have put on a show right that night. There were people that wanted to do backstage, people that wanted to be on stage, people who had lots of experience, people who had not much experience, but it was such a boost for us to move forward. And it took a few months, but the very first production we did was Lovers and Other Strangers at the Common Fence Point Community Hall. And that was, I think, 21 years ago.
Wow.
Since that time, we've done musicals, we've done variety shows, we've done dinner theater, we've done comedies. The only thing I think we haven't done is really, really serious stuff. Although you might call this history stuff we do pretty serious, because there's the research and the writing the script, and it's entertaining. We try to make it entertaining too.
And they are. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in one for our 375th, and I was very impressed. A typical production, I guess there are not really any typical productions, but because like the one you're doing now, preparing for now, is like 6 players maybe?
I think there's 7.
7, okay. And is there a number generally that I guess it depends on the play probably, right?
Right, and it also depends on if we have somebody who's going to be directing. They may come with us, say, I'd like to do this show. A couple of years ago, a young man, Danny Rodericks, was looking to do a show at the high school, and he needed our help. So we stepped in, but he kind of has, the last couple of summers, directed for us. And he usually comes up with a play, and we either say, okay, we think that'll be good, or, well, what do you feel about this one?
Now let me ask you about what has been the fate of the Jamestown Community Theater?
I believe Mary Wright, who was the driving force behind that, retired a couple of years ago, but they're still doing plays.
Yeah.
I went to see Pippin there earlier this year.
Okay.
And they have that wonderful community center, and that's where they do their stuff.
Well, I know we have to spread ours around because we don't have one particular venue we can all use. Now, are the folks that are involved with you, are they all from Portsmouth, or are they from the island? Or
well, we have people from Tiverton and Bristol and from the island. But we've done shows where we've had people coming from up around Boston to be in the cast.
Wow.
Or farther away in Rhode Island, Cranston, Warwick, over the bridge.
I know, off island. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Gloria, how did you get involved with the community theater?
I got involved with community theater because my husband loves acting so much. So he started to be involved, and if people know us, they know that one is working, the other one ends up being there too. So I ended up joining the board and helping out with some things because of his involvement.
I think
Yeah.
the first show he was in was The Fantastics.
He was in The Fantastics,
And he played the part of the old actor.
and he got hooked. He just had so much fun. It was
Yeah.
like a little boy going out to play, and so he was hooked from there.
Go, Richard, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my roles tend to, although I've had a couple of acting parts, my roles tend to be in the research and the writing side of it, and doing audio visuals and things like that.
Front of house.
Yes, front of house. Yep.
Yeah, now, how many productions typically do you do a year? Or is there any number you shoot for?
2 or 3.
Okay.
Last year we did, what was the name of that summer play? Was that Arsenic and Old Lace, or was that the previous summer? Of course, now I'm drawing a complete blank.
Of course.
What did Danny do? Oh,
Yeah.
You can't take it with you.
Yeah.
And that
Can't
was
take
a
it with you.
very big cast.
Yeah.
That was a a big group and a very successful performance. But we have things that are more low key. We've done living history days at the Historical Society, things like that.
The Brown House.
The Brown House. We've done those kinds of things as well. So it's a variety. Sometimes there's some big shows. You did Love, Loss, and What She
I
Wore.
Yeah, that's.
We
that
did
in
Murder
April.
at the Coal Mines this year, and now we're doing Stories from the Churchyard. So that's 3 this year.
Yeah. We'll talk about Murders at the Coal Mine in a minute, because that was a real big one, and I think, for you guys. And this is probably a sore point, since the Christian Academy has gone away. You no longer have that facility to hold your productions. Where do you go? What are some of the other places you can go in Portsmouth?
Well, over the years, the community theater has been very flexible in performing lots of different places. We had our first show at Common Fence Point. The old St. Mary's Episcopal Church Hall building, we've done things there. The Penfield School, which was then the Aquidneck Island Christian Assembly, Christian Academy, we've performed there. We've performed at the Valley Inn.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh.
What am I thinking?
That's right.
Yeah.
We've performed outdoors.
Outdoors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Outdoors, indoors.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great, because the reason I like you guys, and this is very apparent, I guess, is you guys represent the community. And, in the old age, I was just thinking about that today. In the old days, before TV, what did people do? They did exactly what you're doing. You stage a play. You get your family to play different parts. And that's
Right.
kind of, to me, the atmosphere that you guys have.
And it's been interesting when I do historical research, and doing a play was done all the time. Well, organizations would do that, and it would be a fundraiser for this or a fundraiser for that. That's one of the things we've been doing too, is
Right.
that
Gloria
we have been.
found some newspaper clippings from the early part of the 1900s with the Portsmouth Theater group.
Yeah.
Really.
So there were community theaters
So
then
you got
too.
Yes.
deep roots. then.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Let me talk about your recent collaboration, essentially, with the Historical Society, Gloria and Richard, and the Community Theater. The one you just mentioned, Murder at the Coal Mines, which was held at Common Fence Point Community Center.
To a
It
full
was
house.
a big success. I mean,
Yes.
we had like 160 people there, so
Yeah.
it was big.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more where this came from and the idea for this? And
Well,
I mean, it was fascinating, but where did it come from?
I'm also very active in the Portsmouth Historical Society, and I have a research partner, Marge Webster. And we'll take a topic and we'll research it. And we were looking at untimely deaths. And Marge, I think it was, came across this article, and it was just so outrageous. a situation with this murder-suicide type thing. And we just started researching, and we spent about 3 years researching, going to the archives, going to the state courthouse records and things like that. And we had a lot of material, but the idea was, well, how do you share this?
Yeah.
How do you present it? And because we had done the ghostly witness before as a courtroom drama, it just occurred to me that that might be a way to present the information in a really interesting way. So I worked on it, getting a courtroom drama together with narration and some other things, even evidence, and presented it to Cindy and the Portsmouth Community Theater last summer. And they were behind it, and they thought, well, they'd like to present it.
Yeah.
So Cindy actually came to Texas over the winter, and we worked on scripts back and forth. Cindy took the directing part, and the hard part is really trying to get the cast together for that. And you know, it ended up in Memorial Day weekend as a really stunning event for us.
Yeah, no, it was really great. And as you say, these are great ways to showcase our history.
Yep.
And don't throw away Ghostly Witness. I think that's a good one to bring back every once in a while.
I think we've presented at 3 different occasions.
At least, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good.
You were in the original cast.
Yes, of course.
But you know, we wouldn't have written it at all if it weren't for your prompting. Because for the 375th, you came to the community theater and asked what we could contribute, and suggested that was one event in Portsmouth history that you were interested in. Luckily, I was able to find a transcript of the
I know,
trial.
that was fantastic.
So we started with the actual transcript.
Yeah.
And there's always kind of a tension between the historian with me and the performer as to how much you stick to the actual history and how you dramatize it.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be a tension.
Well, no, I thought that was great. And like I say, there's plenty of room left, I think, for something like that later on.
Yeah.
Let me go back to Murder in the Coal Mines, because I understand it won several Rhode Island Theater Awards,
Yes, it did.
which is something we never do around here, right? Could you talk about that, Cindy?
Well, the Motif magazine is a big supporter of the arts and music in Rhode Island. And every year they have a music awards night and they have a theater awards night. And they contact people who are involved in theater to submit events that they feel are worthy of notice. So I got the email and I submitted several things, and some were accepted into the final ballot. And then the ballot is put online and people electronically vote. And then they had a wonderful evening at the McVinney Auditorium, really high class.
Sure.
And it was packed. And it's kind of like the Tonys or the Oscars in the really highbrow class. It's our little version of that. So there were musical numbers and dances, and some of the shows that were highlighted, they did a little scene or a little musical number. And they have volunteer people to act as hosts, and they read the nominations, and then they say, and the winner is...
Just like the Academy Awards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you go up and get your award. You're not given any time to speak, but you go up and get your award, and then you go have your picture taken. So I think it was 5 times that night that I went up.
Wow.
Once because the award was for John Brennan for You Can't Take It With You, and he and his wife were sitting in the balcony in the very last seat, and he has trouble with vertigo. So I knew he wasn't going to come down and get it, so I got it and brought it up to him.
Yeah. So you essentially won 5 awards for that.
Well,
Yeah.
for the community theater did Danny won one for
Sure.
set design. I won one for the writing of a new piece for the Community Theater, which was for Murder in the Coal Mines. And then we had a collaboration with
Yep.
the Portsmouth Historical Society.
got an award.
So that was an award.
Yeah, I
And
got
Cindy got one for
Best
directing.
Director, Love, Loss, and What I Wore.
So there were quite a number of Portsmouth Community Theater productions. Among those 5 awards, there were 3 different productions
In
involved.
fact, I think backstage there was a little chatter saying, "Who are these
Yeah.
people?
Portsmouth where, you know?
Yeah.
Who are these people?"
Yeah.
And Kevin Broccoli, who was one of the MCs of the whole event, said, "Well, you know, you people have to get out and do theater. Go to other theaters if you don't know who they are."
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, congratulations on that. Is this an annual event, by the way?
Yes.
This is
it
the
has
first
been.
time
I
I've
think
heard
it's
of
8 or
it.
9 years it's been going on.
Okay, great. Well, good luck for this year and upcoming, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of the stuff is going to be contenders for this stuff.
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, my husband actually got a Motif Award for acting at the Newport Playhouse.
Oh,
So now we have matching
so now
awards.
you keep it in the family here.
We have
huh?
matching awards. Well,
Okay.
his is,
Yeah.
the trophy's different, but
Well, it was very kind of you to present that award to the Historical Society during the reception we had for the Lord Mayor of
That was
Portsmouth,
fun,
England.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a week ago? 2
yeah, a
weeks?
couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. That was very nice. And I think it shows how we need connections. We need to stick together. We're the
Collaboration is at the heart of
Collaboration
it.
is
We're a
everything, so-
small group, and collaborating with other groups in Portsmouth gives us strength.
Yeah.
And we can use our talents and tap into the talents of the groups that we're working with.
Yeah.
And I think that makes for something very successful.
Yeah.
Well, I know that the couple of plays we're talking about here were written by essentially Portsmouth people.
Mm-hmm.
But the other ones, you mentioned earlier when we started about royalties and stuff like that.
Right.
This is something that the public, I don't think, understands that it costs money
Oh, yeah.
to do these things.
Yes. If you're doing a regular play, you have to buy the scripts, which can start at $9 each. Royalties, I think the lowest royalties are $75 per performance.
Wow.
And then, of course, if you have to buy costumes or props or
What about music? If you do a music,
if you use a musical, sometimes the royalties aren't that high, but they loan you the scripts. You have to send them back, the scripts and the scores, and you have to get musicians, or you have to pay for music, and they're
Accompaniment.
very, very expensive.
yeah.
to
So
put on.
when you do one of these, you have a big nut to carry anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that was kind of one of my other questions was, do you charge for these events? And how? I know it varies. So
Yeah,
why don't you explain that?
The musicals and the plays, we generally have an admission fee, and we try to keep it so that it's affordable for anybody. Most of the historical pieces have kind of been by donation. And when we did the coal mines at the Common Fence Point, we actually gave all the money that we earned, that was donated that night, to go towards their renovations.
Okay, so you didn't have to pay any royalties. For
No,
No.
Yeah. What about the coming up here? This is the same kind of
Right, this is
situation,
an
right?
original script, so it's just by donation.
Yeah.
And there's a potluck dinner before, and if people want to attend this church service before that, they're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about that. And Stories from the Churchyard, I guess is the name of it.
Yeah.
How did you come up with this? And I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but I mean,
It started with something that Cindy went to.
Yeah, years ago I was at a storytelling conference, and I went to a workshop on cemetery tours, and I was intrigued, and I wanted to do it. And in discussing things with Gloria, she said, well, yeah, there's wonderful people buried all over Portsmouth. It would be a great idea. So she did the research, and then as I thought more and more about it, I thought, well, you know, yes, we've got these cemeteries, but some of them are not accessible to everybody. And parking is an issue, and weather is an issue if you're doing something outside. So let's make it into a play and have it inside. And we can still use audiovisual to show people this is what the stone looks like.
Yeah.
This is what the person looks like. And so with Gloria doing all the research, she presented it all to me, and then I just kind of wove it into a play. And so we have some characters who are representing as the person themselves. So nice to be back.
Yeah, right.
So glad you're interested in hearing my story. And when we're talking about Sarah Gibbs, who was one of the driving forces behind bringing a Episcopal church to Portsmouth, the rector is going to be talking about her. So we're talking about her, we're not presenting as her. And also another person we're doing the same way, Trish Culver, is going to be talking about the gentleman who was the driving force behind starting the War College, who's buried in the Episcopal churchyard.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
Trish is a Navy commander, right?
Right. Yeah, she's
So
a
that
retired Navy nurse and
that
commander.
worked out
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Some of
great. I think you guys collaborate so well. You guys are like the dynamic duo of
Oh, let
the
me tell you,
community theater.
there have been times though when
Oh,
there's
I'm
been
sure,
a little
but
tension,
that-
but what happened to the baby? There was one newspaper article where they were talking about, okay, the husband had the baby, he handed it to the woman, and then she handed it to, and as we're reading, I don't know where the baby wound up. So the person who was writing that article originally wasn't a very good reporter.
Yeah, you couldn't understand it.
And there was, Gloria had to finally concede or decide, okay, well, we'll stray a little from what the actual record is, just for clarity's
Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah.
So
Okay, now we can't talk about price, but I assume the one at the church is going to be
It's by
donations.
donation.
By
It's
donation,
And
yeah.
the donations will go towards restoring the old church, the church that
Oh yeah, such a
Sarah
beautiful
Gibbs
facility.
Yes.
had built.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
that's very appropriate.
Yes.
you want to just say the date and time again?
Yes, it's Saturday, September 22nd. The performance is at 7. At 6, there'll be a potluck dinner, and people are also invited to attend the 5 p.m. service if they wish. And the church is at 324 East Main Road in Portsmouth. It's in the new building, so it is handicap accessible,
With parking and stuff.
and with plenty of parking in the front and also around back.
Okay.
Family-friendly event.
Yeah.
And it's not a long play, but I think it'll hold people's interest. And
Well, yeah, and it seems
Yeah.
like there's room for expansion as you,
Or going somewhere else. you know,
Yeah,
collaborating with another church that has
Sure.
interesting people.
there, I spent a summer going through graveyards, and
so that's
Where's
what you do
Gloria?
with your
She's in a
time.
graveyard.
I'm in a graveyard. So we have a lot of interesting stories, and that as a historian and as someone involved with theater, what I look for are the stories, the good stories. And in Portsmouth, we have some really good stories
Well,
to tell.
look how it started, with a story.
With a story.
Get out.
So, there are a number of people in the St. Paul's churchyard. There are a number of people in other churchyards that or cemeteries whose stories deserve to be known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of the things you're doing at the end of the month is going to be doing a lot of telling the story of women.
Oh,
Women.
yes, yeah. That's the next Sunday, isn't it?
It is, and because it's easier to find resources on what men in Portsmouth were doing.
Yeah.
It's been more difficult to pull out the stories of women, and we've had some fantastic women. So we're going to celebrate them.
Good.
Yeah.
I think you
Will
should.
there be cake?
No.
We did that one year, though.
We had birthday cake for Ann Hutchinson
Yeah,
last year.
that's right.
And last year we celebrated the founding mothers.
Right.
And this year we are including those, and we do include Anne and Mary Dyer and Julia Ward Howe and others that are famous. But they're actually very good stories of people that are not so famous, but they had very important roles in Portsmouth,
Yeah.
and their stories deserve to be told.
We're lucky we got such a rich history here
Yeah.
in this town.
And that event is going to be at the Historical Society,
It
right?
is, and it's we're going to also have from our collection some artifacts that go with some of these women. For example, Elizabeth Wilkie made the first Portsmouth flag.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring that in, and we have some other things that are not usually highlighted or on display. So they'll be out for that day, and we'll have kind of a presentation where all the audience will be part of telling the story.
Yeah, like you did last year with Anna.
Yes, yes.
And this is on Sunday from 2 to 5, the 30th of
The
September.
30th of
I believe,
September, yeah.
At the Portsmouth Historical
Yep.
Society. You know, we're down to 3 minutes, but what I wanted to do first, I'd like to ask each of you ladies about how did you guys, what is your background, and how did you get involved in this stuff? From an early, you know, let's go back to when
All
we were
right.
both all teenagers.
I was an orange in 2nd grade. You want to hear my line? So you called me sour, did you, Paul? My brother's lemon and grapefruit may be sour, but I'm not.
See, you still got it, right?
That's right. But then I was really shy during
Get
school.
outta here,
I was
come
not
on.
involved in any theatrical things in high school. It wasn't until I was working for an insurance company that had a performing arm that I finally forced myself to show up at one of their meetings. And from there, I had the lead in Sound of Music and My Fair Lady. I started attending classes at the Hartford Conservatory in their musical theater program. And they had somebody coming from Lyric Theater Company for summer stock in Newport at the Casino Theater. I was cast as the comic female lead, and Jim was the understudy for the comic male lead, and that's how we met on
Wow.
stage at the Casino Theater as man and wife, and the next April we were married, and he's had that role ever since.
Yeah, this is a tough role to get out from under, I can tell you.
Right, right.
Now, the thing is, were you a Portsmouth person or
No,
local?
I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gloria,
And
what
I-
about you? Because I know you're all over the place. You know, you're one of the mainstays of the Historical Society. I should tell everybody that. They know that already. How did you get involved in this stuff? I know you were at school rather at
I
Elmhurst.
was the librarian for Elmhurst School, and with the kids, I started to teach them how to do research. We started researching local history. So I started with my love of history. I've always had a love of history, but I started with the kids researching the Glen Manor House, Glen Farm, and when
To the women associated with the Brown House?
Yep. Working on preserving the Brown House. And then when we joined the Historical Society and Marge and I teamed up, we started researching wonderful people and wonderful stories in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
So that's my background.
Well, that's great because you guys, like I say, are stalwarts of this stuff, and we're so appreciative that you're here in our town. Let me ask you just a quick one. Are you guys looking for volunteers? Would you like people to come in and say,
Sure.
I'd like to be in a play?
If you want to come to the show and then talk to us afterwards,
Super,
or my
that'd probably
number's
be-
on the flyer, give me a shout, 401-847-5148.
Okay.
And even if you don't want to act, there are a lot of other roles
Sure.
that we need, like publicity and working on research or scripts or audiovisuals or any of those
There's a
things.
place for
There's a
everybody.
place for everybody.
Okay, now how can people who don't want to get involved in plays or acting, how can they support you?
Join
Checks.
us. Join us. There's
Yeah,
a
we
small
are a
membership
nonprofit.
fee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We are
there's
a
a small
501(c)(3).
there's a
Because
small membership
we're out
fee.
of time already, guys. I know we
Okay.
would be, but thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank
and
you.
sharing
Glad to be
your
here.
background and what's going on. Very exciting stuff.
Thank you.
And that's it for me, Doug Smith. We'll see you next time on Portsmouth This Week.